8th century kind of a poetry, the kind of kings who were ruling us at that point in time. Nedumaran, a very well-known king in the Tamil history. And to talk of Nedumaran with his personal profile as strongly as his public profile, it's very interesting to see this. And I think you're making a big contribution. You know, today the next gen Tamils would probably learn Pandikovai through English a lot more easily. You know, if you're able to taste that, then probably they will learn the Tamil component of it. I know it's a little funny to say this, but the fact is today, these Citrilakiyangal, literature of the smaller aggregation kinds, need to be taken to the youth in a different way. You know, the lyrics of it, the music of it needs to be taken to them. Padanan Kilkadak, the 18 literary works, for instance, and the Citrilakiyangal, a host of things what we have in Tamil. We are really trying to kind of take it to the youth of today through various means. Of course, fighting against the onslaught of Anglicization, which is very dominant in Tamil Nadu. As you know, even the Tamil schools, Tamil Nadu government schools, we had to introduce a English medium class in order for students.
This evening, and we are honored that you have launched our book today. So moving on to the book review, we have with us Professor Leah Comio, who is going to review the book, The Pearl Canopy. She is one of the leading scholars in Tamil culture from North America. Dr. Leah has many research papers to her credit, and her present project is on flower garlands for gods in Southeast India. Dr. Leah is also the author of the book Material Devotion in a South Indian Poetic World. Over to you, Dr. Leah.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Greetings, good evening, and good morning from the United States. I thank founder director Dr. John Samuel for inviting me in celebrating the book release of The Pearl Canopy, Poetry of Kings and Lovers in Ancient India. This excellent English translation of the Tamil poem Pandikovai is a real tribute to the scholarly collaboration between Professor David Buck and the late Professor K. Paramasivam. This translation is the very welcome extension of Buck and Paramasivam's 1997 publication, The Study of Stolen Love. Depending on the interest of the reader, these two books can work in harmony with one another. They can be used as handbook, supplement, commentary, or guide. The poem translated here is Pandikovai. Pandikovai is the oldest surviving verses written in the genre or style known as Kovai, and sings the praises of the 8th century king Netumaran. The oldest complete Kovai poem is Manikavasakar's Tirukovayar. Two important characteristics of all Kovai poetry are that the poetry combines Aham and Puram themes throughout the composition, and second, every stanza or verse of the Kovai must praise the hero of the composition. In the many Kovai poems that proceed from this foundational text, the poems praise either a god or a supreme human leader. Of the human patrons, the Kovai has been used to praise famous Hindu warriors, Muslim philanthropists, and even one Pondicherry Dubash named Anandarangan Pillai. In the Pearl Canopy, Pandikovai focuses its praise on Pandya king Netumaran, his conquered territories, and his victories in battle. In my review of this book, my attention was drawn in two very important movements. One is reaching back, and one is reaching forward. King Netumaran provides us a lesson on reaching back, on investigating and interpreting the past. The Pearl Canopy is a wonderful composition that conveys many of the priorities and prescriptions of Sangam literature. It is a celebration of Puram or heroic elements and is an exemplar of the various stages, tropes, and themes of early Acham love poetry. Embedded in these verses, we also find a great deal of information about Tamil culture. The poet shows a deep knowledge of ecology and the botanical and environmental features of South Indian landscapes. Many verses in this poetry name local towns, villages, and cities, like Tondi city, that are significant to the political map of Tamil country under the rule of the Pandyas. Some stanzas describe weaponry, jewelry, and other items fashioned for everyday use by the hero, the heroine, the king, and his army. Pandikovai also includes rivers, like the Vaigai River, and mountain formations, like Podial Malai, by local names that provide us yet another lens or window into the world in which the poet must have been composing. We also learn about the imaginary world that the poet designed and conveyed to his or her audience, all in the name of the great patron king. All of this historical and cultural information is preserved in the Pandikovai, and all of this is also conveyed to English language audiences in the Pearl Canopy. The second feature of the Pearl Canopy that I would like to reflect on is its reach into the future. The translation work is described in the introduction by Professor Buck himself, is based on notes taken nearly 40 years ago through a partnership between renowned Tamil scholar and an American keen to learn Tamil studies. I am very pleased that this publication wisely combines the Tamil script and verse at the top of each page with the English translation below. Buck explains that the Tamil text printed in the book is adapted from Project Madurai. I am sure many here are familiar with this resource. Project Madurai was launched in 1998. Due to its digital nature, Project Madurai, much like this meeting today, is a truly global enterprise. The volunteers who developed the digital library represent many countries around the world. At last count, there are over 700 entries on their list of ancient and contemporary Tamil works. It is significant to note that these resources are free, they are paperless, they are open to scholars and the general public, and thus Project Madurai does not discriminate against anyone who has the curiosity or thirst to learn more about this Tamil language digital library. At a time of painful division between communities and countries, our gathering today, the Pearl Canopy, and each element of this production and publication are significant reminders of the great rewards possible and the intellectual necessity for us to partner with one another in new, creative, and sustaining relationships. Even before we were required to be online and virtual due to COVID-19, Dr. John Samuel and the scholars and the staff at the Institute have been supporting partnerships across national borders and encouraging the work of scholars like Professor Buck and myself. The Institute of Asian Studies maintains superb lists of publications, language learning, and now Dr. G. John Samuel is arranging wonderful events like these, and also digital venues such as his Tamil lectures on YouTube that continue to expand scholarly and public appreciation for Tamil culture and literature. I am so honored to participate in the community here on my screen, connected by email and WhatsApp, and to be part of the continuously growing network of Tamil studies. And I encourage you all to engage with and also enjoy this wonderful translation of Pandikovai in the weeks and months ahead. It is a generous gift to Tamil studies. I wish you all safety and good health, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Leah, for your very insightful and in-depth review of the book. We are honored that you could review this book for us today. Now, moving on to the felicitations. We first have Professor Alexander Dubiansky. He is one of the leading Russian Tamilologists and is an expert in Sangam classics. He is a good speaker in Tamil. Professor Dubiansky's book, Rituals and Mythological Sources of the Early Poetry, is an invaluable contribution to advanced research on early Tamils from the perspective of a Russian Tamilologist. The volume published by the Moscow State University in commemoration of Professor Dubiansky's services for the cause of promoting Tamil studies in Russia under the title Tamil Tanda Parisu is indeed a wonderful anthology of collected research papers that will serve as source material for Tamil studies. However, due to unavoidable circumstances, he is not able to participate with us live today, but he has sent us his video felicitation, which we will see now.
என் மதிப்பிற்குரிய இந்த கூட்டத்தின் தலைவர்கள் டாக்டர் ஜான் சமுவேல் அவர்களே, தமிழ் பேரறிஞர்களே, நண்பர்களே, உங்களுக்கு இன்றைக்கு வணக்கம் கூறுவதில் நான் மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகிறேன். மற்றும் இந்த கூட்டத்தில் கலந்து கொள்வதற்கு நான் நன்றி தெரிவிக்கிறேன். இப்பொழுது ஒரு சிறந்த நூலை பற்றி பேசுவோம். இந்த நூலை பற்றி நான் சில வார்த்தைகளை சொல்ல விரும்புகிறேன். நான் இப்பொழுது ஆங்கில மொழியில் சொல்ல விரும்புகிறேன். So dear colleagues and friends, we are now taking part in a very interesting event, presenting a book of translations of a very interesting piece of literature, Tamil literature, which is, as you know, called Pandikovai. I think that everybody in this hall knows that this is the first representative of the famous medieval genre Kovai, and it has many, and besides it is connected with the treatise Irayanarahapurul, which was translated previously by Dr. David Buck, whom I want first of all to congratulate on this occasion. I met once Dr. Buck, and I know his translations and his works, and it is a pleasure for me to participate in this event connected with him and connected with this wonderful piece of literature. I think that everybody who studies Tamil literature knows about this word Pandikovai, but actually it was not so well known among scholars, even though it is a very interesting and peculiar piece of literature. In fact, we know that its main feature is a connection or a combination.
More acceptable by the new audience of a different generation. The author has done a very good a comprehensive work on this by engaging himself in comprehending the essence of the language and the concept of the work. Then he had used his style and language that is acceptable and appropriate to the date today, what we are living and reading. and he has emitted his knowledge, his language, his skills in preparing work. Like Mr. Shankaramurthy, the late Shankaramurthy from BBC once said, translation is like transferring a glass of wine from one glass to another. Without even dropping anything out, it comes slowly. If it is 100 ml, it comes as 100 ml. The author has done a wonderful, wonderful job by taking an ancient literature and combining his skills, knowledge, and his language proficiency to create this wonderful work. And it was so impressive. I got only few songs. It is about 350 songs, I believe. And that has induced my interest to go and read the entire work. And when I started reading the English word, the words are chosen, and it is so beautifully written, and it is also very literary and poetic. Thank you very much once again for this wonderful opportunity. I wish all the best for the author. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrika, for your elaborate analysis of this book. We know it's late night for you in Australia, and we are really happy that you're here with us today. Thank you. We have with us Dr. Francis S Mutu, who organized successfully the 10th World Tamil Conference in Chicago last year. He started his academic career from Loyola College in Chennai. He worked in the Faculty of Education, Loyola University, Chicago. A good scholar in the history of education, he is the author of the prestigious book, History of Education in Tamil Nadu, published by the Institute of Asian Studies. Dr. Francis is the founder of the Chicago Tamil Sangam, which has seen its golden jubilee last year. I now invite Dr. Francis to deliver his felicitation.
பெருமதிக்குரிய அமைச்சர் அவர்களே, இந்த வெளியீட்டு விழாவுக்கு வந்திருக்கின்ற அரிய பெருமக்களே, குறிப்பாக வெளியீட்டாளர் ஐயா ஜான் சாமுவேல் அவர்களே, மொழிபெயர்ப்பாளர் டேவிட் பக் அவர்களே, இந்த நூலை அறிமுகப்படுத்திய அம்மா பேராசிரியர் லியோ கோமோ அவர்களே, பிற அறிஞர்களே, நான் எப்பொழுது டேவிட் பக்க கூட்டு பேசினாலும் தமிழ்ல பேசுங்கன்னு சொல்லுவார். ஆங்கிலத்தில் பேச வேண்டாம் அல்லது தமிங்கிலத்திலையும் பேச வேண்டாம், தமிழில் பேசுங்கன்னு சொல்லுவார். அதனால் அவர்கிட்ட சொன்ன இந்த தடவை தமிழிலே பேச போகிறேன், நிறுத்தி பேசுகிறேன். இவர் நாம் அறிந்த வெளிநாட்டு தமிழ் அறிஞர்கள், குறிப்பாக வீரமாமுனிவர் திருக்குறளை அழகாக ஆங்கிலத்தில் மொழிபெயர்த்து அதற்கு உரை எழுதி, திருவாசகத்தையும் மொழிபெயர்த்து உரை எழுதி உலக புகழ்பெற்ற தமிழறிஞர் டாக்டர் ஜி போப் அவர்களுடைய
For Southeast Asia, a professor of English and comparative literature, he is the author of 65 books in English. He is very much interested in the study of the trade link between Tamil Nadu and Thai in the early and Middle Ages. I invite Dr. Nares to offer his felicitation.
Honorable Minister of Development, if I don't make any mistake.
No, you didn't. Perfectly fine.
Dr. John Samuel, Dr. David C. Buck, Professor Rama Paramasimam, and distinguished guests. Good evening from Bangkok, from Thailand. It is immense pride and privilege for me to be invited to participate in the virtual launching of the book entitled The Pearl of Canopy, which is an English translation of the 8th century Tamil classical work, celebrating the great king and warrior of Pandya dynasty. The original work, as I learned from my supervisor, Dr. John Samuel, was translated into English by Professor David C. Buck and Professor K. Para Masivam. As a former PhD student in literature, but not focusing on Tamil literature, but at the same time, I was nurtured and I was impressed by my supervisor, his family. And as the former PhD student in literature at the Institute of Asian Studies under the supervision of Dr. John Samuel, I was really proud of my former institution and my supervisor for organizing this significant event like this. It reminds me of the time when I was studying in India. I studied my MA in Mysore for 2 years, and then PhD 5 years under the supervision of Dr. John Samuel. So this is really a significant moment that I have to say congratulations to both the translators and my organizer, my institution, Dr. John's institution. Even I didn't study this Tamil literature, but I had learned and experienced the uniqueness of Tamil culture and literature through the people and the text in Chennai. The institution itself has continually published many important literary works, which are available both in India and some other countries. At the same time, I'm sure that the priceless work will be available in Thailand. I mean, this book, the translation copy, English copy, will be available in my country, Thailand. Professor Dr. John Samuel was very kind to me and always kind to me when I was his PhD student. And he visited Thailand many times and delivered attractive speeches at Mahachula Longkorn Buddhist University, the university that I taught for more than 20 years, both in high educational level, like PhD and MA classes. And at the same time, he also participated and delivered a significant speech about trade and cultural ties between Thailand and Tamil Nadu. Thailand known as Siam and Tamil Nadu at Southeast Asia University, the university that I worked for more than 15 years as the Dean of Faculty of Arts and Science. So my country, my previous country was, is Siam. It is very much fascinating to know about the close Indo-Thai relationship in the Middle Age, especially the close unbroken tie between Siam and Tamil Nadu for many centuries. The most significant tie between the two countries that I must mention here is through Buddhism, as we know that Buddhism originated in India. We Thai people use Buddhism to link between the two countries, and the literature also we receive from various areas from India, also available in our country and adjust to our literature, like Ramayana also here available, and many significant works also. So Buddhism links the two countries together. We Thai people consider it the greatest heritage that Indian people gave to Thailand, or Thai people. This is the unbroken tie between India and Thailand, and I believe the tie between the two countries will last forever. I congratulate Professor David C. Buck, Dr. David C. Buck, and Professor K. Rama Paramasivam, who have jointly translated many Tamil classical texts into English. And I would like to congratulate my supervisor, Professor Dr. John Samuel, to organize such an important event like this. Thank you for inviting me to deliver the speech in this significant event like this. And I am sure that this work will help to promote the greatness of Tamil literature beyond the frontiers of Tamil India, crossing all the barriers and present it to the wider international scholarship, especially in my country, Thailand. Congratulations again, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nares, for your excellent presentation. We are enthralled by your research between the cultures of Tamil Nadu and Thailand. We are sure your efforts would bring these countries closer. I would now like to invite Dr. Masakazu Kono, a good Tamil linguist from Japan. He studied applied linguistics from Australia and did his PhD in the Institute of Asian Studies. This scholar from Tokyo specializes in the grammatical similarities between Tamil and Japanese. I invite Dr. Kono to offer his felicitation.
Greetings for everyone. I am Masakazu Kono from Japan. I'm pleased to express my felicitation for this virtual book launching. First of all, I'd like to start with my study background. I was extremely interested in learning Tamil when I was in Singapore. After that, I came to Chennai and became a PhD student at Institute of Asian Studies. During that period, I undertook a comparative study between Tamil and Japanese. According to my study, I understand that Japanese culture is closely linked with Tamil culture in several ways. Because of rice culture transition from India to East Asia, some similarities are pointed out between the Pongal festival and some other festivals in Japan. In addition, Japan became much closer to India by the prevalence of Mahayana Buddhism. That also includes the influence of Sanskrit and Bodhidharma. As a result, there are numerous songs and games for children related to Bodhidharma in Japan. In this reason, most Japanese are familiar with these influences without knowing. As far as the language similarities between Tamil and Japanese is concerned, both languages belong to the same language family. Therefore, the two languages show some similarities, including the sentence structures, verb formations, verb groups, etc. In regard to the book, The Pearl Canopy, I'd like to make a few remarks. This is a great book with a beautiful cover page. The language is carefully selected for the translation. While I was reading the introduction of the book, I recalled the unique concept of inner and outer among Tamil poems. I knew that the same concept can be applied to the Japanese traditional poems as well. Finally, it is sure that this publication is essential for non-Tamil readers to experience the sweetness of Tamil tradition. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Kono, for your very good review of the book. I would now like to invite Dr. Sornam from Mauritius to offer his felicitation. Dr. Kadirvel Sornam is noted for his Tamil programs in the radio and television of the Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation. He is in fact a cultural ambassador between Mauritius and Tamil Nadu. His intensive study of Tamil culture in Mauritius won him the prestigious PhD title. I now invite Dr. Sornam to offer his felicitation.
Honorable Uyathiru K. Pandirajan, Minister of Tamil Development, Culture and Archaeology, Government of Tamil Nadu. Respected Dr. John Samuel, Founder Director, Institute of Asian Studies, Chennai. Professor David C. Buck, Associate Professor, Emeritus Elizabethtown College, Kentucky, USA. Professor Leah Konu, Associate Professor of Religion, University of the Science, Philadelphia. Dr. Francis Mutu, Chairman, International Institute of Tamil Culture, United States of America. Professor Alexander Debiansky, Moscow State University, Russian Federation. Dr. Chandrika Subramanian, President of Tamil Valachi Mandram, Australia. Mr. Kumar Punidavil, Social Worker from Canada. Dr. Daniel J. Raj, Professor of World Christianity, Liverpool Hope University, England. Dr. Masakuzu Kono, a specialist in language teaching, Tokyo, Japan. Dr. Nares Surasith, Professor of English and Comparative Literature, Thailand. Distinguished Tamil scholars and non-Tamilians from different countries. Members of the audience who are following this virtual event online. Ladies and gentlemen, my heartiest vanakkam, good afternoon, bonsoir to all of you. I am extremely happy to be among the participants in this webinar whom I met in different international conferences and seminars. I even met the Honorable Minister in Chennai this year in the month of February. Now I'm going to introduce myself. I am a Tamil origin of Mauritius. My forebears were from the district of Tanjavur, Tamil Nadu. They settled here in Mauritius in the year 1884 to work as endangered laborers. I belong to the fourth generation of my descendants. I had my primary and secondary education in Mauritius, followed by my higher education in Tamil Nadu, Madras University in particular. I taught Tamil at primary, secondary, and tertiary level in my motherland. I served the Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation as a freelance Tamil presenter, a full-time producer, and senior producer for more than 40 years. Now I am fully involved in translation, transcreation, and transliteration of Tamil prayers, devotional songs into English, French, and Creole, our dialect here in Mauritius. It is my bounden duty to thank the dynamic director of IAS, Dr. John Samuel, for having given me an opportunity to participate in this webinar today on the occasion of the virtual launching of the book, The Pearl Canopy, by Professor David C. Buck and Professor K. Paramasivam. My close association with IS during my training courses at the All India Radio and at the DDK in Chennai, now known as Poetic. At that very time, I visited the Institute of Asian Studies. It was in the year 1985, 3 years after the establishment of IES. I was very, very much impressed by the objectives of the Institute, such as undertaking research on Tamil heritage with a wider Asian perspective in collaboration with scholars from different countries. studying systematically the composite culture of Asia, promoting better understanding on the homogeneity in Asian culture. Afterwards, whenever I go to Chennai, I never fail to visit the institute and buy valuable books on regional cultures and Tamil literatures translated into English, published by the IS. At the same time, I would seize the opportunity to spend some fruitful times with foreign students studying Tamil under the guidance of Dr. John Samuel and Mrs. Indira Samuel. Today, I am proud to say that I had been lucky to have Dr. John Samuel as my guide for my research study, leading to my PhD degree through Madras University. It's pride for me to be a product of a reputed institution like the IS. Dr. John Samuel mentioned it in his introductory speech. He mentioned my name as a product of IS. As the IS has academic collaboration with the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Mauritius, the director of IS, Dr. John Samuel, was called to serve as external examiner for BA and diploma examinations conducted by the University of Mauritius and Mahatma Gandhi Institute. The IS organized the second international conference on Murugan, first international conference on Tamil diaspora, and an international conference on Tirukkural in Mauritius, with other famous institutions in Mauritius, which were very, very successful. Today, it gives me an immense pleasure to participate and voice my feeling as a token of felicitation to Professor David C. Buck, and who is a non-Tamil scholar, and Professor K. Paramasivam, a great Tamil scholar, for the book, The Pearl Canopy, a translation of the 8th century Tamil classical work, Pandikovai, from Tamil into English. Translation helps to open the windows of knowledge through which we can get a fair view of the flavor of other languages. The immortal poet Subramania Bharatiyar made a strong appeal to the Tamil scholars to translate valuable books, that means Tamil books, into various foreign languages and share them to the world, so that the ancient grandeur and purity of Tamil literatures, beauty and purity of Tamil language be known to non-Tamils outside the Tamil land. 53 years back, in his Annamalai convocation address, Perarinyar Anna had kindly requested the new graduates to undertake the special task of carrying the message that our Tamil classics contain to the entire world in order to acquaint the non-Tamils with the value of Tamil language and literature. I strongly believe that both translators, Professor Buck and the great noble soul, Professor Paramasivam, have realized the dream of those great thinkers. I would like to mention that I came to know that Professor K. Paramasivam, who has contributed immensely in the bringing out in English remarkable works in various fields related to Tamil heritage, was the teacher of Dr. David Buck, who did the excellent translation of Kutrala Kuravanji, a Tamil tale of love and fortunes told, which confirms his high proficiency in Tamil language, Tamil culture, music, and philosophy. It is worth to know that his translation is helping Tamil students of Mauritius studying Kutrala Kuravanji among their subjects. The English translation of the Pearl Canopy is an outstanding work undertaken jointly by Dr. Burke, an ardent lover of Tamil, and Professor K. Paramasivam. After having gone through all the stanzas of the Tamil classic Pandikovai, both of them wished to share the lasting pleasure they enjoyed to foreign Tamilians through English. This arduous task was done with dedication, affection, and not for glorification. I can imagine the quantum of work and patience put by the translators to complete this masterpiece. Their aim was to show the world the aesthetical beauty of Tamil poetry. The use of simple English in the translation is praiseworthy. The flow of the language is marvelous. My joy knows no bound. When I started to read the first stanza, I took her 2 eyes like blossoms to be honeybees, her 2 young breasts to be flower buds, her scarlet mouth, I like honey to be the bud of a leaf. It's merely an avant-goût. I am fully confident that the readers of the book, The Pearl Canopy, will enjoy its content with keen interest. I wish to express my deepest felicitation to the translators for this laudable work done by them. My sincere appreciation goes to them for having offered this marvelous piece of work as an imperishable material to enable the reader, Eastern or Western, to understand and appreciate the beauty of Pandikovai. My fervent wish is that Mother Tamil shower her bountiful blessings on Dr. David Buck to live a long life so that the non-Tamils around the globe can benefit more by other similar projects to follow in the project with the collaboration of the Institute of Asian Studies. I can say that here in Mauritius, most of our Tamil students, they used to read books translated in English or French to understand the beauty of Tamil. Today, I would like to say that I have started to study Tamil through English translation. Books prepared by Father Kerslake, published by the Madras Christian Literary Circle. These books have helped us to study and go deeply in Tamil education. Once more, I would like to congratulate Dr. David Buck, whom I met in international conferences, and most of the participants here, I met them, I talked to them, and I hope that, as the minister just mentioned, that we will have to do some yeoman services, some good work to promote Tamil, and we will do our level best for the promotion, preservation, and propagation of that great and ancient language known as Tamil. With these words, once more, I would like to thank everybody who have listened to my feeling, and I wish Dr. Bob to go for a long distance in the creation of more materials to help non-Tamilians to study Tamil. I'd like to thank all of you once more for your attention. Vanakkam.
Thank you, Dr. Swarnam, for your in-depth analysis of the book. Your presentation touched so many critical areas, and we are so happy to have had you here today. Now, I'd like to welcome Mr. Kumar Punithavel, a lover of Tamil heritage from Canada and a committed social activist and philanthropist among the Tamil community there. He is an important member of the Canadian Tamil diaspora who participated in the international conferences on Tirukkural organized by the Institute of Asian Studies in India and England. I now invite Mr. Kumar Punithavel.
Vanakkam, founder director of Institute of Asian Studies, Dr. John Samuel, Honorable Thiru K. Pandirajan, Professor David C. Buck, and other fellow speakers. First of all, let me thank you for giving me an opportunity to join these elite, knowledgeable Tamil scholars. It was a scholar, Canadian scholar. Actually, this is the bicentennial year for that great scholar, a Canadian scholar, maybe the first Tamil scholar, Reverend U.G. Pope, who wrote in his book, in his translation, Naladia, I am not without a hope and believe that such editions of their great classics may find favor with some at least of the great multitude of young Tamil men who pursue with enthusiasm and fair success of their English studies, but are, I apprehend, in some danger, alas, of neglecting their own wonderful language. His word has come true, what Reverend Pope said. His translation of Tirukkural. Because he translated Tirukkural into English, the famous writer Leo Tolstoy from Russia was able to read. And because of that, he wrote the book, Kingdom of Heaven is Within. And he also wrote a letter to a Hindu. On it, he quoted so many Tirukkural, but he of course gave the name as Hindu Kural. And that certainly had an impact on a great fighter, Mahatma Gandhi. They were pen friends for a short time. At the end of it, Gandhi was so much taken up on Tirukkural, so much so he said he would like to learn Tamil so that he can read Tirukkural. He read Reverend U.G. Pope's translation. Now, this is very relevant what we are doing, and especially I must thank Professor David C. Buck from the bottom of my heart. Sir, it was in the 80s, so many Tamils, not one or two, in thousands flew out of their homeland due to the communal violence. They were like, they got scattered all over the world. In Canada, in New Zealand, in Netherlands, in Australia, all parts of the world, we moved out. At that time, we didn't have a chance to teach our children our rich heritage, as he clearly said, of neglecting their own wonderful language. We were forced to neglect. We couldn't, because we were fighting the survival game. But now they all want to know, and believe me, everyone wants to know the roots. At one stage in their life, they will all want to find their roots. And your work here in translating will give them that opportunity, will give them that chance to learn this wonderful language and the rich heritage, not only ethics, even valor, even love, compassion, all these things are well expressed in our literature. And your translation of Pandikovai certainly has done a great service. It is the great Tamil poet who was a scholar in about 14 languages. Paradiyar, in his poem, Yamarinda Moliyalலே says, மறைவாக நமக்குள்ளே பழங்கதைகள் சொல்வதில் ஒரு மகிமை இல்லை, திறமான புலமையெனில் வெளிநாட்டோர் அதை வணக்கம் செய்தல் வேண்டும். Yes, your translation make others to realize, wow, what a wonderful literature this is. Let's go and find further in and study. So you have done a wonderful service, and I must certainly congratulate Dr. John Samuel taking the trouble and initiative as a founder director of Institute of Asian Studies in participating in promoting to publish books like Pearl Canopy. It comes out so well, the translation is so well done. One day, my great-grandchild can enjoy it. Else, they are not going to study. Even, to be honest, even the first generation find it difficult to analyze the Sangam literature. They are wonderful, but so many words have lost, it has out of use. But you have taken the trouble and done, both of you. I must thank both of you from the bottom of my heart, Professor David C. Buck and also Professor K. Paramasivam, who have taken the trouble. I mean, it's a magnanimous thing you have done for Mother Tamil. And I'm sure each and every Tamil will be thankful for the efforts you are doing in translating these books. Once again, let me thank the opportunity given to me to participate and tell it from the bottom of my heart. This is a wonderful job, and more of it should come, and better for the humanity. Thank you. Vanakkam.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar Punithavel, for your wonderful appreciations for this book. I would now like to invite Dr. Daniel Jairaj, who is the Professor of World Christianity at Liverpool Hope University. A good theologian, his contribution to the study of German missionaries to Tamil Nadu is indeed marvelous. He is also a good scholar in Hellenic and Hebraic cultural traditions. He has edited some of the important Tamil writings of the Lutheran missionary Ziegenbalg, and one such work was published by the Institute of Asian Studies. He was also the coordinator for the Second International Conference of Tirukkural held in Liverpool in 2018. I now invite Dr. Daniel Jairaj. Dr. Daniel Jairaj, can you unmute yourself, please?
மாண்புமிகு அமைச்சர் திரு பாண்டியராஜன் ஐயா அவர்களே, உங்களுக்கும் திரு ஜான் சாமுவேல் ஐயா அவர்களுக்கும் மற்றும் என்னோடு பேசிய பேச்சாளர் ஒவ்வொருவருக்கும் என்னுடைய சிரம் தாழ்த்தி நன்றிகளை நான் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். முதலாவது என்னுடைய பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் சார்பாக உங்களுக்கு என்னுடைய வாழ்த்துக்களை நான் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். நான் இந்த முழு பேச்சையுமே தமிழில் தான் தயாரித்து வைத்திருந்தேன். ஆனால் சூழ்நிலைகளை பார்க்கும்போது கலந்து பேசுவதுதான் நல்லது என்று எனக்கு தோன்றுகிறது. So I thought I would do that in under three short headings. First, I would like to say who I am a little bit so that you can put me in the context. Second, I would like to put this particular work, the translation, into much wider context. We are talking about the 20th century translation, but Tamil translation into European languages is more than 310 years. I would just give a little bit of that dynamic that is going on. We are participating in a 300-year heritage, this particular event. And finally, few comments about this particular book and its worth. About me, I am the son of Pallangi. Pallangi is a small village in the Kodaikanal Hills near Madurai. And that was the place I was born. By training, I was a coolie worker. You may not remember that, but that is the one that trained me for all my academic job later on. Even the Pandikovai, when I read certain poems, I remember my own good old days in the village life. That's what people used to do. Love affairs in normal life settings, fantastic poems that just reminds me a lot. But at present, I was hearing how to create intercultural understanding as a Tamilian. That was my great depth. But my father passed away. I had to join an orphanage. In that orphanage, I was introduced to German language. And slowly I began to study German literature. So after finishing my theological studies, I went to Germany to do my first doctorate. By chance, as we were just walking in an archives, I saw a bundle covered with palm newspapers. I pulled out that one. To my surprise, they were palm leaf documents tucked under a shelf, about 160 different Volachuadi volumes, and that really provoked my interest to study more. So for my second doctorate, again in Germany, I took Tamil religions, Saivism, Vaishnavism, and Shaktism. Again, it was a document written by Ziegenbalg. I discovered this manuscript in Copenhagen. And he cited many Tamil works. See, I longed to study Tamil literature, but I never had a chance. But I studied German literature. But through German literature, I came to the study of Tamil. I wanted to find out the accuracy of citations in these books. In that way, I came across the first Tamil library, the first Indian public library established in India. That is 1708 in Trankubar, with 119 Tamil works that we know. The Bibliotheca Damolika, I was fascinated by that one. And my third one, I thought, okay, all the time we are thinking the Germans came and influenced Tamil people. Are Tamil people inferior to these Germans? So what did Tamil people do in order to influence German thinking? Wow. I came across 3 translations done in 1708. Ulaga Neevi, Kondrai Vendan, Neevi Venba. So I took Ulaga Neevi as my doctoral subject that I completed for German studies in the University of Bombay. How it impacted the thinking pattern of Germans who were coming in touch with them. But now, after working in the United States for a few years, now I'm here in Liverpool Hope University. I teach Christianity in Africa and Asia primarily, but I also supervise the research ethics of the entire university. So I supervise them and train my colleagues and senior students in different way of doing research ethics and keeping ethical code of conduct. That's roughly about me. So I am a latecomer to Tamil studies, but I really revel in it, enjoy it. Second point, the much bigger context. What motivated the Germans to translate Tamil works into German? Well, in those days, when I say in those days, it was 1705, when Ziegenbalg and Pulitzer, 2 young students of theology coming to Trankubar, they were given the advice, particularly people who knew them. You are going to Tamil Nadu. Remember, you are going to barbarians, uncivilized people who do not know how to live a civil life. That was the orientation they got. But when they landed in Tamil Nadu and began to do their work, it was necessary for them to learn Tamil and learn Tamil literature. That completely changed their opinion. So in the foreword for Needivanba in 1708, Seeginwald writes, because Europeans do not know what Tamil people have written and how they live and what they speak, they have wrong prejudices, and I need to somehow remove that prejudice and biases from them so that intercultural exchange of ideas can really take place. These Europeans were not merely in Germany or in Europe, but they were in Tamil Nadu itself. So for their sake, he translated Needivanba, Pondravendan, and Ulaga Needi. These three ethical works created so much impression, mind you. So began to print Tamil alphabets. First time in 1708 in Berlin and 1710 in Leipzig. Leipzig is the city of books. And 1709 in London. What did the people think? They thought, wow, so far we have been knowing only knowledge comes from the study of Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. But now they're having an opportunity to know about knowledge coming from Tamil, which they think is as equally classic, equally valid. The impression they got was, okay, Tamil is worthy of translating the Bible into that message. That really impressed them so much. So there were some students who were interested to study. So in 1711, Tamil was for the first time taught in Europe, officially. 1711 by two people. One, the first Tamil man, the Tamil teacher was Timothy Kudian. Timothy Kudian from Tranquebar, and his German colleague was Henrik Pluchow. One of the local professors joined, Michael Benedictine, Benedictus Michaelis, that was his name, and the printer of mission reports, ALS, was his student. So through their effort, Tamil ideas were kept on alive in the German settings for nearly 40 years. Then a missionary by name Benjamin Schulze, who was working in near Blacktown, what we call now Paris Corner in Chennai, and Veperi later on, he went to Germany and took with him a lot of Tamil manuscripts, and he was beginning to print these manuscripts over there. And who was his student? Christian Friedrich Schwarz was his Tamil student. So even before he came to India, he learned Tamil there and came to work in Tranquebar, Tanjavur, Trichy. And when I was speaking with the late senior prince of Royal House, Tanjavur, he told me he is our savior because he was the one who took care of Saraboji when Tulaji king entrusted to him. Thus he saved, so to say, the whole place, Tanjavur, from bloodshed for a very good period. So the tradition, Dr. Buck, Professor Buck, what you are doing comes in the long tradition of Tamils and non-Tamils trying to take out the wealth of Tamil literature and bringing it elsewhere. Now let me come to the third point, just giving some brief ideas about what I have noticed. It is a labor of love. Thank you for persisting in this work. I have been trying to translate some of the German scripts into English. I did 4 of them. One is Tamil Society. You know, the German title is called Malabarisches Heidentum. When I read about that word Heidentum, I got goosebumps. I thought, who are these Germans to call me a heathen? I said, I will never back down to that motive. So I had to find out. I simply said Tamil Society. That's how I translated. A lot of critics came. You should have said heathenism. I said, you have no right to call me a heathen. But it means the translation that you have done shows you how much you are embedded in both cultures. in English culture, particularly in the American culture, using American English, and reading Tamil and Tamil culture, so you are at home in both, so that you are able to build bridges. Secondly, I was thinking of, I translated religious texts. Shaivism, Vaishnavism, it is not easy finding equivalent words. Then there are 99 letters that Tamil scholars wrote to the Europeans telling about Tamil society. So I translated them from German into Tamil, finding the names, finding the pronunciation of things. It is not at all easy task to find equivalence. But the thing that posed me the greatest difficulty is the Tamil grammar. You know, the first Tamil Latin grammar was printed in Germany in 1716, 1716. And it was a Tamil man by name Peter Malayappan. He was the one who took care of that editing. Ziegenbalg is attributed to have written it, but my research tells me that he has borrowed it from Hendrix from Thoothukudi. It was what was in Portuguese, he translated into Latin. I found it very tough to translate it from Latin into Tamil, but now it is done. It's available for people to read since 2010. All this translation, my experience tells me the joy and the challenges of word-to-word translation are dynamic equivalence. What is better? What is more accurate? Sir, you have used both aspects in your work. There are certain phrases which are word-to-word, particularly when it comes to the body parts and also the landscape in which this particular poem, Pandikovai, is situated. Word-to-word translations are there, but you have captured, so to say, the essence or the nature or the basic concepts of Pandikovai and produced and given it in very good American English. Thank you so much for that one. So it's a dynamic equivalence, both principles you have mastered. But thank you also for maintaining the curiosity over such a long period of time, because only people like you are cultural translators. You can build bridges, particularly in our modern times, when governments, whether it's American government, European governments, are trying to build walls between people, and works like you helps them to transcend these kind of walls and creates much better understanding. As I said, as I was going through some of the translations, I was reminded of the village life in the Kodaikanal Hills. It is not far from Madurai, it's only a few hours journey. It was written, so to say, the king may have lived in a city, but the love affairs these people have reflects the village life in all purity and in all complexity. It reminds me very much. In other words, your translation has made Pandikovai alive for people who can identify with themselves with the Tamil world and also in a translated sense elsewhere. So I want to thank you. I also thank you for the late Professor Paramasivam for what he has done. I never had an opportunity to hear his name before, but may the work that you are doing continue. Finally, my gratitude to Dr. John Samuel. It was in relation to the publication of one of my palm leaf manuscripts, I came to him. But ever since, I feel deeply attached to you, sir, and to your institution. From you, I know the importance of Sandron. You are the first one to tell me what it means to be a Sandron. You know, I try to use that in my ethical training in my university. I try to inculcate into my students, young colleagues, and whenever I give ethical training, that somehow influences me. Try to be a Sandron in whatever you do in high-level research work. then you taught me about Murugan worship. I don't know whether you remember it. But it came like a Pentecostalism for me when you were telling about that one. Maybe I remarked that. In other words, whatever our ancestors have done, you have tried to embody it through your institution by creating documents for that, by enthusing people. Thank you very much. And finally, that bringing that Tripura conference to Liverpool was not an easy work. But together with your help and blessing, we could conduct that. And still, my colleagues, those who were here at that time, speak about it. It was a great opportunity to highlight some parts of Tamil culture here. I feel very proud to represent Tamil Nadu in my university here and take Tamil culture forward. Thank you, sir, for incorporating me into this great audience, and I am grateful for everyone. Nandri, Vanakkam.
Thank you, Dr. Daniel Jairaj, for your very informative and enlightening presentation. I would now like to welcome the author of this wonderful translation, Professor David C. Buck, the world-renowned Tamil scholar from North America, who is praised for his attractive English renderings of many of our classic literature, to come and deliver his acceptance speech.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Periorgale, Anbargale, Nanbargale, Taimargale, and as we draw it out from Pandikovai itself, Tan Tamalin Avi Pol Arindargale, Vanakkam. It is indeed an honor beyond anything I had ever expected to be brought into a gathering such as this book launch. My humble thanks to Dr. G. John Samuel and all of the other people who have worked to bring this occasion to reality. I gratefully accept the joyous hopes and wishes that go with this occasion, remembering throughout the indisputable fact that the late Dr. Ku Paramasivam was the person who laid out the bedrock and built the road that was followed in completing this translation of the ancient Tamil classic Pandikovai, for which we have selected the title, The Pearl Canopy, hoping to bring to mind the regal splendor and the pure pearly beauty of these collected poetic sayuls. Here is poem number 103, which contains one of the poetic references to the Pearl Canopy, the Mutukudai, that shaded the seat of the Pandyan king. Go on, don't stop here on the rich and beautiful slopes of these Kolli mountains that belong to him who stood for all the people of this wide world to worship. The king with the canopy of glistening pearls, whose bow engaged and destroyed combatants who would not embrace him at Narayaru. This terraced field is watched. And I wish to close my very short acceptance speech with one last translated sayul, one that brings in the Brahminical Lord Shiva as well as the pearls of status and the doubling up of Akam and Puram themes. This is number 212 in Pandikovai. We must agree and accept this offer according to social custom, for if we do not, the whole world of the Supreme One, him whose ancestor is the cool rayed moon, held in the matted locks of him who wears fresh laburnum, of the emperor with the white canopy of cool pearls, of him whose army triumphed at Narayaru. Even that whole world would never be price enough for this girl with her brilliant forehead. So all in all, I am grateful to find myself in the position of accepting this opportunity through this translation to do my heartfelt little bit for Tamil. Thank you, Tamil scholars and other interested people. Vanakkam.
Thank you, Dr. Buck. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Buck, for your speech. We are indebted to you for having provided to us this wonderful translation. We have now come to the concluding part of this webinar. It is time to extend our heartfelt thanks to all our guests and viewers. We are grateful to our Honorable Minister for having taken time out of his busy schedule and being with us this entire evening. We are grateful for our participants from various parts of the world for your kind cooperation which you have extended to this collective effort for a common cause of promoting Tamil studies at a wide global perspective. We are sure, with all your support and patronage, we could take up more and more projects which will go a long way in strengthening Tamil studies at a global level. எங்கள் வாழ்வும் எங்கள் வளமும் மங்காத தமிழென்று சங்கே முழங்கு. Again, thank you all for your participation and we hope this is the first of many to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll leave now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Vanakkam.
you.
Thank you.
வணக்கம்.
Thank you very much.
வணக்கம்.
Special thanks to Sheba. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
வணக்கம்.
ஐயா புனிதவேல் ஐயா நன்றி.
வணக்கம். நன்றி.
நன்றிங்க.
Francis ஐயா வணக்கம்.
Thank you and congratulations, Dr. John Samuel, for a
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
big project and successful.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for invitation.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thanks for the
you.
opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. வணக்கம்.